much consumers know about these foods.
To do this, we went to the dorms here on campus, the training room, the coaches' offices, and even the local supermarket to see just how much consumers know about genetically modified foods.
First, let's take a look at what happened when we interviewed a Denison student. We just got to IGA, and I'm going to ask some customers about what they think genetically modified foods are. I see you're looking for apples. I just kind of wanted to know which apple you would probably choose.
Gala apples.
Okay, so do you typically purchase genetically modified foods, or do you know what that is?
No.
You don't? Is that in a laboratory, they go in and they alter the DNA in order for the food to have qualities that appeal to people. So for example, you're probably picking the Gala apple because it's larger and it has a nice flavor, and most likely they genetically modified it to get those qualities. Modified, would it make you maybe want to choose a different apple or not purchase anything genetically modified?
It kind of scares me, but does it include a lot of chemicals to make those apples bigger?
Well, that's a major question right now because really the regulation on how you genetically modify foods isn't as stringent as it could be. So that's something not a lot of people really know yet.
Great. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Surprised to see how little consumers know about the good and the bad of genetically modified foods when they are making their purchase. In the produce section at IGA, they have a guide for the consumers.
The FDA requires that all new genetically modified foods to be put on market must consult the FDA 120 days prior to the release of the product. The FDA considers both the technology used and the final product when considering the release of a new genetically modified food. Labels for genetically modified foods are not mandatory. However, if a food is genetically modified, the label is not allowed to say that it is genetically modified free.
People often don't assume that foods are genetically modified because they are so prominent in grocery stores.
Now let's go to the dorms and take a look at a student that we interviewed who is on a strict vegan diet and see how much she knows about genetically
When
modified.
you go to the grocery store, do you check the labels on the foods that you're purchasing?
Yeah, I always check the labels because I'm a vegan, so I make sure that there's no dairy products and any as part of any of the ingredients. But I also check it to make sure that it's organic and that there's not any added minerals or ingredients that aren't really natural and can't be.
Do you think that if grocery stores put labels on their food products that were genetically modified, that it would deter people from purchasing them, or do you think most people wouldn't really care?
I think most people don't really realize that a lot of food is genetically modified, especially produce and fruit and stuff. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that organic is just like more expensive and just like they do something special and it's not like actually better for you than genetically modified food. So I would hope that people would purchase organic if they saw that there's a lot of produce and fruits at grocery stores that are genetically modified and it's not natural.
Great, thanks. Was it surprising for you to see how much more a vegan knew about genetically modified foods than a consumer with no diet restrictions?
Often vegans must be careful about the products they choose to consume because many products that we buy in the supermarket contain eggs, milk, other dairy products, and other animal products that vegans are not able to consume.
Because of their strict dietary restrictions, vegans tend to be more conscious about what they are consuming. Next, we visited the Denison training room to connect with some of our varsity athletes in order to test their knowledge about what they know about genetically modified foods and the role that these foods play in their athletic career.
I just got to the training room and we're going to ask some of the athletes what they know about genetically modified foods. So what do you know about genetically modified foods?
I know that you can change like the amount of chromosomes and stuff to make them bigger and just to make them look more appealing, I guess, and to make fruits bigger.
More organic and...
I usually go more towards organic, but I try and I guess I just look for which one looks better, and like with apples, which one feels harder, because I like mushy apple. But
so you do make like a conscious decision when you go to the grocery store to pick things based on your previous knowledge from science classes about genetically modified foods. Or swim practice, or before maybe conference meet, choose to eat on the bus.
I would probably actually pick the littler one because, I don't know, the red, I like that.
Some athletes are very well informed about genetically modified foods and are careful about the things they choose to consume while training or are in season. Of course, there are other athletes who aren't as informed or health conscious.
We were curious to see how an athlete's food choice was affected by their coach. So we headed to the coach's office to see what they're... Just got to Mitchell, and I'm going to go talk to Steph, the women's lacrosse coach, about genetically modified foods. What do you know about genetically modified foods?
I think I know a fair amount. I try to pay attention to issues in health and eating and try to have a healthy lifestyle, so I pay attention to that particularly. I think one of the things I know most about it, it's one of the things that's made to mass produce food and make it cheaper. So I also know that genetically modifying anything isn't really good, and I think you putting things into your body that aren't necessarily natural is not a good idea.
What would you advise your athletes in regards to genetically modified foods, or when you go on team trips, do you typically try to stay away from buying genetically modified foods?
I try to help them make healthy choices when we're getting food. So, I mean, if we go out to a restaurant, obviously they're going to choose whatever they want. If it's stuff that I'm buying, I try to pick things that are a little more natural and, organic and don't have any types of additives to them that aren't necessary. Sometimes a cost issue, though, is a problem. So you have to make that choice between, what am I going to get them that's the most healthy choice for them as people, but then at the same time, how am I supposed to feed 25 people on a budget? So you gotta find a happy medium between the two of them.
Great, thank you. As you can see, knowledge and conscious choices varies depending on the consumer. This is because they have different lifestyles, different consumption choices, and different backgrounds on genetically modified foods. This has been a hot debate because there are so many benefits and risks associated with it. Let's go over 3 of the most prominent from each. As for the benefits, there's potential that it cuts costs, is good for the environment, and enhances the flavor, size, and nutritional quality of the food. For the risks, evidence shows that it can cause allergies, there are unknown metabolites when the body breaks them down, and it potentially could put small farmers out of business because it facilitates mass production for big corporations.
Because this is still a relatively new technology, all of the genetically modified food effects are still not certain. Until there has been more research, we urge you as consumers to make the healthiest possible choices for yourselves. We hope that the next time you go to the supermarket to buy groceries, you take into consideration the benefits and risks of genetically modified foods when purchasing your produce.